Animation Streaming Experience, ANIMAPHIX 2021, settima edizione. Siamo con un graditissimo ospite. We have a very dear friend here that is coming to speak about his work in animation and his work in cinema. Is Pierre Hébert from Canada, from Quebec, de Montréal. Hi, salut
Hi,
Pierre.
Andrea. Hi, how are you?
I'm very fine, as I hope you. And so, Pierre, maybe we will split our meeting in two because there are so many things to talk about you. There are so many different topics that we can afford. So maybe it's better to at least to have two separate things. We will start with the question about animation, and then we will go to another big chapter of your artistic life, that is performance in animation. So, Pierre, first question is very simple. When animation and why animation?
I guess I should say it's all the fault of Norman McLaren and Len Lai. This was the way I discovered animation. I wasn't. I didn't have much interest in anything that looked like cartoons. I would not have decided to make my life doing cartoons of any kind. So the first film I did was inspired by the fact that I had heard that Norman McLaren was doing film, was scratching on film, and doing film without a camera. I had not seen his film at that point, and very quickly I saw his film actually. So I started from this idea. So it led me quite directly to Norman McLaren and Len Lai, who were the two major figures at that time using that technique. And I received the help of Norman McLaren. He gave me Black Leader to scratch on film. He saw my film, and he eventually introduced me to the producer of the English animation studio at the National Film Board. And this is how I was hired by the National Film Board, where I stayed for 34 years, I think. So really, it's the fault of Norman McLaren. And I should say that although there were other influences, it became more complex. I got to know other filmmakers, other areas of filmmaking, other animators. So, but in the background, his presence, his idea, his film, his idea about the use of technology always remained present and came back at the surface regularly at different times where when I had decisions to take about the future of my work. So yeah, this is how it did happen.
Also, the fact that you were in Montreal where also National Film Board was created. First was in Ottawa, but at that time was already in Montreal, so it was easy to have this guy so close to you that you can contact him. With
Yeah,
Lies a little bit more.
well, he came in Montreal to show his film. There was a retrospective at La Cinémathèque Québécoise about at that time, and so I saw the retrospective where he commented the different films, and we made there was a cinema magazine in Montreal at that time that was called Objectif, and we made an interview with Len Lai so that I could actually discuss directly with him during the interview. That was never really published, but I actually met him. And of course, there were two films at the time that were like my reference and that remained my reference. One was Blinkety Blank, and the other one was Free Radicals by Norman McLaren and Len Lai. And that's probably why scratching on film remained something very important all through my career, and why also flickering or playing around with the frames and what's on the frame, what's not on the frame, always was something important as an area of research for me.
This thing is something that is
but much more than the idea of fluid animation and accurate reproduction of motion, of real life motion. So yeah, those were really the important thing, and they remain important today.
This question of abstraction and also flickering and this kind of thing is very evident in your first films, because it was clear that was this kind of film that you were following in a way. But then
Yeah.
it became that you were using also. So then you become like the national. Your place to work was National Film Board, and so
Yes.
and you started to experiment also other technique, because you are also using cutout animation and
Yes. Yes.
drawing animation and
Yeah, to be frank, before I was at the National Film Board, scratching on film was the only thing I could afford because it basically didn't cost me, it costed me almost nothing. So when I arrived at the National Film Board, thanks to Norman, then suddenly I had access to all other techniques, material, processes. So I became interested, like a kid, of trying out to play with those tools.
so
So
your school was National Film Board.
yeah, that's it.
Uh,
And so I used paper cutouts, and actually it was quite influenced by the way Bretslav Poyar was using cutouts with phases. He was actually animating his first film that he did with the film board at that time, and I could see what he was doing under his camera, and that influenced a lot my use of cutouts that lasted for a certain number of years, actually.
so was what like you were taking everything was passing through the National Film Board. It was interesting. You were taking like a vacuum and and learn how to use it and use it for your
Yeah,
films.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
great. So then I would say that there is, after that, maybe there is a sort of political engagement in your films.
Yes, yes. Well, in a way, all the abstract film that were flickering, I understand those as something political, in the sense that it was really my view of scratching film was that I was like disturbing the elements of cinema, that I was doing the contrary what you're supposed to do. Just scratching the film is like the contrary of what is considered essential in all the chain of technical operation that goes through making a film. The first thing is don't scratch the film. So I felt that there was something very irreverent in doing that. And I
Not easy to
understood it.
communicate as political effect, no, to people.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. But later on, especially with Souvenir, Memories of War, Souvenir de Guerre, it became, and also with Entre Chiens et Loups, it had a clearer subject in terms of talking about something. And, it means starting talking about unemployment, about war, about what was happening in the world.
in my
So,
opinion, also Père Noël is a strong political film. Huh?
yeah,
It was a little
also,
bit before, I think, Antichene. No?
yeah, it was a bit before, yes. And the thing that was closely associated to this political, more explicit political interest was the fact of mixing together live action and animation. It started in Père Noël, actually. It was a suggestion of the editor I was working with, and I really liked what it did, and it became an important element of my work until now. Like scratching on film remained something important. So this was a moment where there was a change in the subject matter of my films, but there was also simultaneously a change in the stylistical approach with the fact of mixing live action and animation.
So you were also collaborating. I think it's something typical of the National Film Board, especially at that time, that you were working for your production in some way, your films, but you were also everybody was also collaborating with other projects, no, or being involved in other projects. You were also working a lot to make some intervention on documentary film, no, if I remember.
Yes, yes, I did that, and well, in a way, I was lucky enough at the National Film Board to do. I, I I did everything I wanted to do, and I was never forced to do something I didn't want to do. But in a way, being available to do animation inserts in documentaries, things like that, I I liked it because I was doing that with friends, and also it had to do with this idea of connecting animation and live action, but also I understood that it helped me in the sense that I was showing that I was available to other things than my own project. I thought it was helping me in terms of being able to do my own projects. So it served many purpose, this fact of doing insert in other film. And it went quite far. For example, I worked with Fernand Bélanger on his film L'émotion dissonante that had to do with the situation of drugs with young people. And in that case, I did make intervention in the film that was a sort of virtual layer always present from beginning to end. It wasn't there all the time, but it was there sufficiently often so that it created a distinct layer that was associated to the live action documentary shooting. And actually, and a separate film came out of that, which was called Love Addict, which was the result. So that experience was very important. It was not my project, but it was as important as if it had been my project, actually. So yes, just to say that I was happily open to collaborations.
So then we arrived to the 80s that were like a decade very important, I think, for your artistic life, because at the beginning of the 80s, I think it's Souvenir de Guerre, 82, 83, something like this.
Yeah, yeah,
And Souvenir de Guerre is particular film, not only because of the topic that come back for La Plante Humaine. There are some similarity between Souvenir de Guerre and La Plante Humaine, but also that you were using this technique to draw on film. I mean, to scratch on film, but making something that is figurative
yes,
with the story. That this was something that before the advent of the digital process was something that maybe only in National Film Board you could do it something like this, because
yes.
it was necessary to make a long process of black room, no, to make.
Yeah, I was working in order to do, starting from Souvenir de Guerre, all the films. It did involve quite a complex process on the optical printer. So all the colors were printed separately. So there were many steps in scratching a specific image or a specific shot, because I had to do all the different layers of the different colors. And the colors were printed with filters. Overall, I don't think I will explain in detail. Overall, it was inspired by Picasso's way of doing linoleum engraving that had many colors, but that all came from a single piece of linoleum. So I was inspired by the way he was doing that, and I did adapt that to scratching on film, to scratch by steps, and in order to add to the scratching on the same image the different colors that were to be used. So it led to quite an elaborate use of the optical printer, and that was possible only at the film board, because the printers were the property of the film board. The cameraman that was operating the camera was paid anyway, and and what happened is that I became friend with one of those cameramen who Michael Cleary, who was very important in my work for those years, and quite a lot of the time he was not actually working because there was a bottleneck in this department, which was the preparation of the work for the optical printer. That was quite a long process, and films that had to be processed were waiting in line to get to that point, and then actually eventually go on the camera. So Michael was maybe a fourth of his time he was not actually working. So I learned how to do the preparation of my material for the optical printer, so I didn't have to go in the bottleneck. And every time Michael was free, he would call me up and he said, "Do you have something to shoot? I'm free." And so I would go. I had always had something ready to shoot. So that's how actually, the work on the optical printer for Souvenir de Guerre, if I would have done it in another situation, like in private sector with private companies, it would have cost a fortune. But at the film board, I was just using available time and disponibilities that would have been lost otherwise. So I had no problem in the fact that I was using this technique extensively because the cost of it was a sort of a fiction. But of course, outside the film board, that would have been a totally different situation. So
So,
for me, there were 4 or 5 films that were done in that way with that same cameraman, the same process, and of course, this is really thanks to the structure of the film board as it was at that time.
and we can say that Souvenir de Guerre was also a sort of limit point, no? Point of limit that, because it goes to you that you were passing a lot of time to make one film, one short film. It's not so short, but it's a short film. And
Mhm.
after that, you told me once that you were a little bit disappointed that in this case, was almost no result in terms of festival and things like
Uh,
that. That at that time, I think was the important thing for such kind of film coming from the
yes,
National Film Board.
yes, it
And
was.
in that time, National Film Board was also having a lot of prize everywhere, Oscar and whatever.
Yeah, it won the prize in Tampere in Finland, but it was not selected in NSC. Well, of course, at that time there were far less festivals than there are now.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, there's so many festivals now. At that time, it was Zagreb, Annecy. I don't know. Maybe
Speed
Hiroshima
Hiroshima.
started. Uh, Ottawa was not existing
No,
yet,
maybe a Speed
and
was
yeah.
existing, but
There were
Varna, but I'm not
activities.
sure.
But it went in theaters. It had actually quite a career because and it was shown a lot in colleges by cinema professors because it seemed to be a success with the public of young adults like
In my
adults.
opinion, is one of my masterpiece. So in my
So no, and actually it went in Montreal with 3 different films as a short in theaters, as a short subject before the features. But the thing that troubled me with that film, it's a 15 minutes film, and it took me 2 years to do it, working alone. So, well, I had Michel Posé help me for paper cutout sections, but basically I was most of the time alone. So that's not such a long time for a 15 minutes film that you animate alone. But I felt that it was much too long, and I had a documentarist friend from Holland, Johan van der Keuken, who told me something very cruel. He told me, if you take that long to do a film, you're digging your grave at every time.
I
So,
was doing very long films, documentary
so
films. So
at that point, I decided that I had to work much faster, and I don't think from that point, as far as my shorts were concerned, it never took more than a year to complete a film, and
so two
usually
films were
not
coming
having
at that time. One is the Tienesara, and
it
the other
was
one is
hard.
Chante danse du monde d'animé numéro 1, Le Métro.
Metro, and then there was Au Picasso and Adieu Biped. But slowly, another element did intervene in the mix, actually. And yeah, the fact that I started animation performances, scratching directly on film, uh, live, uh, it was the way I found to gain speed. Uh, when you do that, you're forced to do it very fast. You do everything very fast, almost without thinking or with a special kind of thinking. So it helped me develop a lot of speed in animating scratch animation. And I had in the back of my mind the idea that I should become fast enough so that I could animate a feature, which did happen because La Plante Humaine was done quite fast and
And using a lot of, I mean, of the experience, what you said now, I mean, you were developing La Plante Humaine step by step, doing performance with different musicians at
Mhm.
that time. And so I don't know, maybe we can go through the performance part
Well,
of your life.
let's say performance is something on its own that we can
Yeah.
discuss separately. But the thing that was important the thing that's important to say from that time is the fact that from I would say au Picasso, all my films were closely associated to performance projects. The performance were having a life of its own, but it was also merging into all the film projects did include material that were done in performances.
So
So
Picasso is a strange story because in any case is a film that is not available, if I remember well, because you didn't have permission to work on on
yeah, well,
Picasso.
you're talking about au Picasso.
Oui.
Yes. Well, actually, this film was at the start a collaboration with Gilles Cal, who was doing a feature documentary film about Picasso at the occasion of a big Picasso exhibition at the Museum of Art in Montreal, and I was asked to do animation from Picasso's painting for that film. So I accepted at the condition that I could use that material to do my own film. So that's how Au Picasso was done. But at the time, the film board had to negotiate with the Picasso estate the rights for the reproductions that were in the feature. And there was a mistake that was done at the time is the fact that they ask also rights for my use of Picasso's images in my film. But in my films, there were no images of Picasso. They were only
Imitation and
interpreted
recreation.
interpretations of the of Picasso painting or drawings, and strictly there was nothing that were holding rights in my film. So they paid, and it was all right for a number of years. And when they did publish the DVD set of my films, that was in the early 2000. Uh, the rights that had been negotiated with the Picasso estate arrived at the conclusion. So they had to renegotiate, and it was hard to say we don't because they already had accepted to do it. And Picasso estates watched the film and thought it was not respectful enough of Picasso, and they decided to withdraw any kind of rights for that film, and the film stopped existing. It's not on the animation on the National Film Board catalog anymore.
And they
And
put, but they put the name Picasso on Citroen car, so
yeah,
at the same time.
and I was quite shocked because at the time I watched the publicity clip for this car that was named Picasso. And in this publicity, they were using pictures of Picasso. And there was complete misunderstanding of the meaning of some of the paintings. Like, for example, they were using the doves of Picasso as they were just an example of being interested with birds and nature and the countryside and everything. While everybody knows that it had to do with the peace movement, and the dove of Picasso were actually political statement in associated with communist parties actually. And so they were claiming I was not faithful enough to Picasso with my film, and they were accepting that for the publicity for that car, they would do something that was totally counter the meaning that. So that was quite interesting, actually, how the Picasso estate understood the work of Picasso. They understood it more like a business asset than anything artistic. So my film disappeared, and it's too bad because in a way there's something that started with that film, which was the use of complex cycling in order to develop animation. And the film was actually an experiment of that kind, all the different sections of the film, because it was made in short sections, was a different approach into using cycling effects on animation and lagging cycle. And so that was very important for the future of my work, but now it cannot be seen except secretly.
Okay, we don't have, so we don't put on in this interview a piece of Picasso. And so another point of depart for the your relationship also with music and musician was Le Métro Chante Danse du Monde d'Animé,
Yes.
because you were also making this film was this and other film where the musician were played the soundtrack live, so there were no
Yes. Yes.
soundtrack until you were recording different live act, and you decided the musician decided which one was the good one for the film. And this was to jump also with the collaboration you had with René Lussier in Etienne Sara, put you in the scene of the musician, new musician, musique actuelle of Montreal, that is an important scene of music, of
Yes.
new music, and bring you to do something different.
Yeah, it was extremely important. Of course, that this is another thing that started at that point and that continues today. Interestingly, it was a change in my view of working with music and musicians. Before that, I was more related to the old idea of sort of convergence between music and animation, and that animation could be something that's called now, I don't like this expression, that's called visual music. I had developed the idea that, and it became very clear when I started working with those musicians, that in terms of the passage of time, uh, the animation and music are two different worlds that you can synchronize, but the way time is passing by in the two medium is totally different and obey two different rules. And if there's going to be a relationship between music and animation, it's not that there cannot be any synchronization, but it's that it should be at a poetic level, at a structural level, more than thinking that you can connect things in a very direct and natural way. So at the same time, from that point on, my work with musicians was extremely important for all the films. And at the same time, I became very clear to me that music and animation were two different, answered to two different sets of rules in a way, in terms of how time passes in the two medium.
But we stop here now because this is another topic, and
Yes.
we make a long jump because we it's not easy because in any case everything is like the crossing your life, so we can't jump here and there because one day you are doing a documentary, one day you are doing a Dieu monument, and
Mm.
one day you are doing performance, so it's not easy. But then we have a sort of after we can say that after this first part of performances bring you to make La Plante Humaine, the long
Yeah.
feature film. That is,
Mhm.
you can explain how it is a little bit made, and also that is live action and animation.
Yes, yes, it has live action and animation. Live action of many types. There's like more like fiction shooting with Michael Lonsdal, and that famous French actor, and there are also a lot of archive material. The film was talking about the first Gulf War, so in the sense it was really connecting with my political interest and with all that had to do with connecting animation and live action, and also it included material I had been doing in performance for the 2 or 3 previous years. Actually, in the 2 or 3 previous years, with different musicians, I was having this performance that's what was called La Plante Humaine, actually. And the way it did develop is that every new performance, the result of the performance, I would include in an editing of all the sections that have been done in performance. And I was building up a sort of film with blocks that were all the different performance. And in the performance, there were 2 screens. The top screen, I was projecting all the previous performance as they were edited. And on the bottom screen, it was the current performance, the current animation that was being improvised. And the more it was going, the more I knew where the current animation would fit on the top.
So in some way, what you were influenced by your own animation.
Yeah, exactly. And I made sort of a ghost image of the film to come with all those animation that came from performance. So I started adding a lot of scratching animation that was done in 35 millimeter and with quite a developed digital process to put colors, composite it, and but the structure of the film actually already existed in the performance, and it just emerged from that with a more narrative layer that started to develop on top of it. And the one of the idea that I started with was to think that all the animation done in performance was the subconscious of the animated character that was in the film. This was, maybe it was my subconscious, but an
Sure.
animated character doesn't have a subconscious. But I mean, that was the idea that drove me into constructing that film. Of course, the other important aspect is that did switch from the use of the optical printer to the use of digital tools to do. At the beginning, I was expecting to do more or less the same thing, but of course, it did develop in new possibilities as far as as the film was going along, and that actually did correspond to the moment that at the film board, Michael Cleary, my cameraman, went on did retire,
Uh-huh.
and that they threw the optical printer to the garbage, and they started to do everything
So
digitally.
he really
So
went. He really
it was a
went retired in the good time. He has a good timing to be retired because after
yes,
that there's
exactly.
no more job because of computer.
Yeah.
So if we can try to jump over the performances, can we say that after La Plante Humaine, okay, you stop also to work? I mean, you were working for a while as a producer in National Film Board, and then you stopped working at National Film Board.
Yes.
This is the time you started with the project of Lieu et Monument.
No, when I stopped working at the National Film Board on the 30th of December 1999, so I will remember forever that my gift, my centennial or millennial gift was to become independent artist by retiring from National Film Board. So from that point on, I had a project with the musician Bob Ostertag that was a performance project, and that actually for 3 to 4 years, what I mainly just did performances that was called Living Cinema with Bob Ostertag, and it actually did. I before 3 years later, I decided that I would try to do a film out of the material I had shot of the performance I was doing with Bob.
Okay. So I think that maybe it's better we close with your retirement. That is sort of newborn, no? And
Yeah.
we will talk about the new Pierre Hébert in the second part of this interview.
Yes.
And now we make a little pause
Okay.
and see you. Don't
I don't
stay
go. I don't
connected.
go. I don't go away.
Okay, me.